Take one.
So can you tell us a bit about INVESTIGO, please?
INVESTIGO is an international recruitment company, effectively across many different markets, sectors. That's effectively what we do.
As an ex-footballer coming into the business, why did you feel like INVESTIGO was the right place for you to work?
I think it was a few things really. I think the team environment that we have here is quite strong, and everyone kind of works with each other, which is kind of similar from a footballing perspective. But a high performance element, I've worked in other recruitment businesses, and nowhere's as high performance as INVESTIGO. So from like an elite sport, whether that be football or anything else, I think INVESTIGO has that definite high performance element to it as well.
Right, okay. Could you tell us a bit more about why would you describe it as high performance? What about the culture of the company means it really aspires to be high performance?
I think it's a few things. Again, I think that people really take their role as a career, not just a job, and I think that is a massive part of INVESTIGO's, I suppose, DNA here. I think that we definitely only hire the best of the best, which is great. So people who want to really make a difference in their markets and people who want to be specialists in their markets as well. So I'd say those two things are probably the main things.
Awesome. Ray, do you think you can tell us about the Reinvent programme?
Yes, so the Reinvent campaign is something we've started to roll out actually this year. And it's basically a way for us to be able to get people from all different types of backgrounds, not necessarily recruitment, not necessarily graduate, but any kind of walk of life, into recruitment, into a lucrative career. I've worked in TA for about 3 years, recruitment for 5. So one thing I do understand is that this job is all about your mentality. You don't need a degree to do this job. You just need a really strong mindset. And I think, a lot of the hiring managers could agree that that's a very important part of hiring into your team. So it's basically about, giving people the opportunity through brilliant learning and development, through, to your point, excellent mentorship throughout the business, to be able to just set off their career in a completely different market that you don't need any prior experience within.
What are the principles behind where it came from? What was the reasoning behind setting up the programme?
Well, as a business, obviously, you're always looking at how you can grow, and INVESTIGO's model has initially sort of been senior level hiring, people that have come from, brilliant recruitment companies and have had excellent sort of training, but they just want something different. They want to know how they can elevate. If you're the best of the best, then who do you learn from? So I think the point of that is having such a great, strong management team. Who can we bring in under that isn't just a strong, graduate model and see what sticks. It's about finding the right people for the right reasons that would want to do this job and offering that as an opportunity, essentially.
Okay. Matt, would you be able to tell us about your experiences transitioning out of elite rugby into the environment here at INVESTIGO?
Yeah, definitely. I think recruitment as a whole really is about consistency. It's about doing things well time and time again. And I think that's pretty much the same as sport, is that I always viewed it as that if you train well on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you'll play well on a Saturday. And this job and INVESTIGO is pretty much exactly the same as that. If I have the inputs, I'm on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm going to get exactly the same on a Saturday. And the best thing about INVESTIGO is that maybe previous companies have had the idea that maybe I just see that, whereas here, I think everyone sees that, and that creates an amazing environment for growth, opportunity, and the rest.
What preparation did you do when you were still playing rugby? Did you do any training, any qualifications? What was your plan for the end of your career?
I mean, not at all. I didn't really have a plan. It was injury forced. I would have loved to carry on playing. I think most people who played sport would probably have the idea that they were going to do that for the rest of time. And not many of us get to sort of stop on our own terms as much as we'd like to. So for me, it was very much of got injured, decided, right, need to have another plan. Maybe I'll go and play lower tiers or whatever it was. And started to look at what might I be good at, listen to friends, family, people that did this, and they mentioned recruitment because I was all right at speaking to people. And that's really how I got started. So there wasn't a huge amount of planning. I think a lot of people can probably relate to that.
Yeah, mine's quite similar. I think I got injured quite young, so I was 17, but again, I would have continued playing competitively as much as I could. But when it came to thinking about, right, I live in London, I don't want to work behind a bar anymore. What could I do? Recruitment, just skills, again, mindset matched, a lot of what I already had built in terms of like tenacity, in terms of competitiveness, in terms of ambition as well. So it seemed like such a natural thing to get into and just progress within.
And how about you, Dan? What were your experiences transitioning out of football?
I was similar in terms of I fell into recruitment. I think we have that saying in recruitment. A lot of people say they fall into it. They don't make the decisive idea, that's the career for me. So I fell into it after finishing football. I just blatantly wasn't good enough to become the next Messi, Ronaldo, etc. So my career, I suppose, regressed as time went on. So I think that my transition for me, it was all about where can I work with people? Where can I still maintain that competitive edge? Because that's something that I'm really passionate about. And actually recruitment gave me all of those things, just in a different type of environment.
So what do you think, I'll start with you, Dan, what do you think are the key values a sports person brings into the working environment? Any working environment, but particularly recruitment. You've talked about competitiveness. Is there any other key attributes people would transfer across?
Competitiveness, hard work, resilience. Someone told me the best thing that I've heard is recruitment's like the bleed test backwards. Okay. They say you start off and you are running and it's so hard. It's in a lot. That's why a lot of people give up within their first kind of 12 to 18 months, is because it's such a tough thing to do, because results aren't it's not easy to do. It's not an easy role. But as time goes on, you get more experience, you learn more, your network grows, and actually it gets a lot easier. And I've been in recruitment 12, 13 years now, and I can testify that it does get easier as time goes on. So, but at the start, it is hard work. It is putting everything in, just like you would do on a football pitch, on a rugby pitch, on a hockey pitch, wherever you are. So yeah, I'd say resilience, hard work, and just maintaining that competitive edge as much as you can.
Right. So what about you, Ray? What skills did you take from hockey into the environment here?
I think resilience is a big one. I know you've touched on it there. I just think like when you've played competitive sport can be really cruel in a way. In many ways, you can work an entire season for a championship and then just lose. That's quite a tough pill to swallow, but that is what it is. And I think like those realities, translate into recruitment, because you can be working on projects or roles or building relationships, with so many different things, and for reasons that you can't always put down to yourself, these things fall through. And I think that's the hardest thing. Like if you can't even just look at where you went wrong, it can be quite tough to pick yourself up and move on to the next thing. So I think resilience, you naturally build in sport just because you have to, but you always have to come back fighting. You always have to come back and reassess and go on to the next thing. I think a competitive nature is a really big one as well. I think being surrounded by so many impressive people, you're always going to walk into a company and they're going to be billing money and they're going to be reaping the rewards from that, and they're going to be progressing. And I think you should people naturally would set like those as targets to aspire to be. Just like in sport, there's always going to be someone better than you, and you want to be the Messi, you want to be that person. So I think it's the competitive nature alongside with that resilience that you naturally build from being in sport. I think they combine quite well.
Same to you, Matt. What key values would you say you've taken from rugby into your working life?
Yeah, for me, I was never like that guy that would sit in the middle of the huddle and shout amazing things or whatever. For me, it was the ability to affect people by just leading from the front. I think that's something that I've really, really taken here. And you can create momentum and change people's feelings and be a leader just through doing that. No one likes to be told something that person isn't willing to do themselves. So that's really what I took from it, is that I can affect change and positive momentum through just doing those basics right and leading from the front. And I've taken that into this and it's worked out all right so far.
So in your roles in INVESTIGO, you're working with people, helping other people. So I'm just wondering if there's anyone during that transition from the sports field to the workplace, are there any key people who really helped you along the way or gave you good advice or supported you in that transition?
Good question.
My dad was a big one for me. He's an Olympic athlete, so obviously he doesn't play anymore. But sport was what I wanted to do. Like at school, I was more extracurricular and sport than academia. So I knew I wanted to take that through to uni, but obviously my injury didn't let me. I tried, but it didn't let me do that. And the realization that that's not what my life was going to be, or I couldn't work and actually do the thing that I loved anymore. It was tough. But my dad being an athlete, having gone through it all, he worked up to the best that you world class, the best you can be, and so he never kind of had that the same thing where he had to stop. He's actually managed to see his career through, but I think seeing that or seeing how he succeeded was a brilliant way for me to kind of
real inspiration.
Inspirational enough, and one of our family's done it, so it's good enough for me.
How about you, Matt?
I don't know if it's the answer you want, but I don't really have anyone like that. I think like when I finished sort of playing, it was like you had a meeting at the end and they were like, right, well, maybe in the future you could play at this league or whatever, sort of just go down the pecking order. And I'm like, that's great. I suppose that's why something like this is so important, is that it gives a bit of a guide, a bit of an idea of what you could do, a bit of a direction of travel next. Whereas I think no one really has that in high level sport. You're like, right, you are a bit of a commodity in a way. It's like, right, okay, well, you're not going to be here, so I'm sure you can go somewhere else, but we're not really interested necessarily in what that is. And that was my experience, and I was fortunate to come here. Family gave me a bit of guidance, but yeah, there wasn't a huge amount, frankly.
I think when you're younger as well, you have like the family element. I certainly had it like that. That was it's kind of like your tribe, isn't it? That always support you and do all that piece. But for me, I was quite lucky because when I joined my first recruitment business, I had a chap who's on the board at INVESTIGO who was an ex-professional footballer, who actually helped me in terms of, the way that he worked was very similar to the way that I worked, and it was quite lucky because we knew some of the same people and stuff like that, which was good. I also had one of the directors in my first business was an ex-professional boxer, so they also had they kind of knew their roles, and it kind of helped me to go, okay, that's how they transitioned, and that's how I can kind of, I suppose, follow their lead in a way, I suppose.
So almost like role models for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So Dan, you've already said that the environment here is that high performance environment, and we all know sports people that we don't like when no one ever aims for the silver medal. People always aim for the gold medal. So what is it about the environment here that enables people to always aspire to be the best? What about the environment here makes it a high-performance environment?
I suppose that's the big question, right? What's the secret ingredient to INVESTIGO? What are we doing different than anybody else? I don't know. For me, I think it's everybody kind of being very career driven would be the way that I would look at it. I don't know about you guys, but that's people come here as a career, not a job, which all the recruiting businesses do have that kind of job feel. Yeah,
you can really be ambitious and work towards that here. I think obviously as T, I speak to a lot of people, who might be interested in, what's going on in the market. And, at the end of the day, if we go to, senior recruiters who are very good at what they do, just going at them with a great commission structure and, progression, everyone offers that. I think the difference is for people at a certain level and from the bottom up to be able to build is actually to build something and to have something that's yours and you can have complete autonomy over, and countless amount of people in that business, in that room, have done that, are doing that, out of just all of these great personality traits that you get, that you need to bring into recruitment. So I just think, in terms of opportunity, you're surrounded by people that have done it and a business that backs you to do it. And I think that's the difference. It's not just you work for INVESTIGO and you work in a team, under a team, under a team. It's a business unit. It's a whole, it's a whole ambitious kind of incentive just to keep going up. But people have done that here and will keep doing it. So.
And what would you say, Matt?
I'd say I think environment is the key word. Is that I think when you're in a sporting environment or you're in an environment like this, is that you're constantly looking around going, right, you want to see people that are better than you. You want to see a bar that is higher than the one that you're currently at, right? And when I'm at INVESTIGO, like I have been in sports teams, I've looked around and gone, some of these guys are way better than I am. So I know I'm in the right place. And I do that here all the time. I look at my boss right now, Alex. I look at some of the people I manage, and you get a bit like, this person is frankly in some areas better than I am, and that's all we can ask for. If you're at an organisation and you're looking around thinking I probably am the best, you either need to take a look at yourself and question if that's actually the case, or you need to move in order to grow, and that's something I haven't found here yet. There are still tons of people better than I am.
Yeah. There's that thing of like sum of five, isn't there? Like sum of five, most five people around you.
Yeah.
You make the sum of the 5 people around you. And I think that if you surround yourself with great people, I think naturally you get taken on the journey and you get taken kind of forward. I think that's a big part of INVESTIGO's culture, I suppose, is everywhere you look, you can see somebody who is better than you, but definitely better than other recruiters in the market.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think it's when I speak to someone who's potentially going to join INVESTIGO, we sit down in an interview setting, and I was in one earlier. Is I say, look, when you go away and you do your sums or you do whatever, if am I going to stay where I am or am I going to come here? Like, ask yourself, what is the average of the team I'm joining? Because if you back yourself, you'd back yourself to, of course, as most of us would, be better than that average, but you need to understand what that is and what metric you're going to use to judge that against. And I think that's something that usually when people come to make a decision and join here, they usually say, yes, right, actually that average is something that would be really happy to be a part of rather than a step back. So I fully agree.
So it's the culture and the values of the organisation, I think is what we're saying. So is that one of the purposes behind the Reinvent programme, is to reach out and find those really driven people from outside traditional talent pools and get that diverse talent in to start adding to that environment? Yeah,
absolutely. And just to go off your point, Matt, like anyone who's been good at sport, who's probably been the best in their year, probably been the captain of, probably played for the year up, like, you know, to your point, you've had to do that because you were the best in your year. How do you get better? And then, you know, you could be, I don't know, head of sport, or you get full colours or whatever, however your school or your, you know, club, you know, celebrated you or whatever. So, you know, from people, I think specific to sport, like the Reinvent campaign is literally for someone, you know, who has that complete mindset, who has reached those targets. Maybe you can't do it anymore, but you can still bring that energy into a job. And that's what the Reinvent campaign is for, like, 100%.
I think it is really good for, you know, because we get knockbacks a lot in recruitment. It's quite normal. It's quite, you know, I was hoping for a great start to January, and it's really not worked out like that. It's been a bit more challenging for the past kind of 3 weeks, but that's just recruitment. So anybody who's kind of been through that setting of, you know, you do get your knockbacks, you don't play very well, or you know, you feel a bit down on some things. They're all really relatable things to our job, because you just know that. I know that next week, hopefully, you're going to go at it again, and hopefully it's better than the past 3 weeks. You do have to have that sense, I suppose.
Yeah, I think as well, obviously people join your team, and you'll have, you know, your manager and your teammates around you, but we also will, you know, try and pair you up with people from other areas of the business to, you know, just kind of let you know there's more people than just your team. But, you know, we have a mentorship program, which is, you know, for people like, let's say, someone like me, if I wanted to, or, you know, I wanted to work on like having a really kind of strong, you know, mindset or attitude. Like I've had like a really bad couple of months or something like that, and I sort of need help kind of getting out of that, you know, kind of rutty feeling that you can kind of get. You know, I might get paired up with someone who's had a similar experience, but they've come back from that, and that's literally what that's for. So you get that, like, essentially from day one, you'll have a buddy in a different section of the business that can kind of talk you through, just another face in the business as well, but talk you through, you know, what they've been through in recruitment, as well as, you know, since joining INVESTIGO. And then normally after a 6-month period, you join a mentorship program, which is, again, another connection to another area of the business, where it's more kind of like strategic to your role, how that can impact, you know, or I guess, influence you in what you're doing from another perspective. So there's a lot that we do to try and, get people heard and struggles, I guess, assisted so you can be better.
Okay. Just the last question to all of you, just quite briefly, is there one tip you'd give to a sports person facing the end of their career?
I'd say keep all your doors open would be a big one. Because I think we were having this discussion before. You're kind of fixated, right? When you really want something so much, or you're kind of in it. You tend to not explore other things. And actually, my mum had a completely different view. She was like, "What if you don't make it?" I was like, "Well, of course I'm going to make it." Or and she was like, "Well, what happens if this happens?" And you almost don't think of that sort of stuff. Whereas that advice was actually quite key, and a good tip of keep all your doors open, because you never know who you might meet in the future also, but you never know when you might need to kind of pivot a little bit in your career.
How about you, Ray?
I think networking is really important. It's important in recruitment, but if you're at a point where you don't know what to do next, just talk to people. LinkedIn's huge now. Like, you can get on it easily. You can speak to anyone you want. Anyone will be happy to help you. I think, especially people that, maybe play the same sport as you, or like parents' friends or friends' parents or whatever. See what they do. See what they suggest. Like, it's never a straight line for everyone. So I think just get out there and see who's about and network.
How about you, Matt?
Yeah, definitely. It's really a combination of the lot. Like, speak to those people who are around you and those that will give you really honest advice and feedback of what are you good at. Because it might not be this, it might be something else, right? But if you can get there, that's an absolute start. What are you passionate about? And then make a bit of a heading from there. And then, as Dan said, keep your options open, have conversations, go for interviews. That's absolutely fine. And also, you can get things wrong. Like, again, you've transitioned out of one career to another. You can also do it again. That's not a problem. So speak to people, have conversations, speak to INVESTIGO.